Coming up on this Monday edition of Newsline at noon, the spy agency's alleged election meddling is under the spotlight at the parliamentary audit, with opposition lawmakers accusing the agency of running an online smear campaign against opposition presidential candidates in the run-up to last December's election. In the latest in a string of corruption scandals plaguing Korea's nuclear power industry, it's emerged 8 cable suppliers involved in price fixing have been paying high sums of money to entertain business partners, while the state-run nuclear plant operator handed out numerous contracts to the families of its employees. Plus, a state of emergency has been declared in New South Wales, Australia, after wildfires destroyed more than 200 homes. These stories and more on Newsline at noon.
Where's the best place for bibimbap?
Les Jeux Olympiques d'hiver se dérouleront-ils à Pyeongchang?
هل أنتم حقاً سابع أكبر مصدر في العالم؟
この歌手は誰ですか？你好，最近哪部电视剧的人气最旺？
Korea is attracting interest from around the world. The more you know, the more you want to know. Dynamic Korea.
Thanks for joining us. This is Newsline at noon, and I'm Choi Yusan in Seoul.
Very good to have you with us. I'm Mark Broom. Well, let's start with a new development that's likely to reignite the election meddling row that has raged for months now. A group of opposition lawmakers claims the National Intelligence Service embarked on a massive online smear campaign against the opposition candidates in the run-up to the December presidential election.
And as our political correspondent Kim Hyun-ji reports, the NIS might not have been alone in allegedly trying to influence voters.
Opposition lawmakers sitting on the Parliament's Judiciary Committee say the National Intelligence Service, under its former head Won Se-hun, disseminated some 55,000 online comments on Twitter and other social networking services that opposed or slandered the opposition candidates Moon Jae-in and An Chol-soo in the weeks leading up to the presidential election. Previously, the NIS was only suspected of staging an anti-Moon campaign on the internet. Yoon Sung-yeol, a senior prosecutor who was leading a special probe into the NIS scandal, said the spy agency tweeted in favor of the ruling party candidate Park Geun-hye and detained related NIS officials without his superior's permission. Yoon was ousted from the special probe team last Friday and is now facing an internal affairs probe for insubordination. The ruling Saenuri party said Yoon's dismissal was in line with due process, as he failed to comply with the correct legal procedures. However, the main opposition Democratic Party says the presidential office of Cheongwade pulled strings to exclude Yoon from the special investigation team, just like it did with former Prosecutor General Choi Dong-wook. Che stepped down from his post last month amid rumors he fathered a love child. The Democratic Party believes Cheongwade forced Che to quit because his probe team indicted former NIS chief Won Se-hun in June on charges of violating the election law. Meanwhile, an opposition lawmaker raised allegations last week that the military's secretive cyber warfare command unit posted online messages in favor of ruling party candidate Park Geun-hye ahead of the election. The military has launched an investigation into the allegations and will announce results this week. Kim Hyun-ji, Arirang News.
Now, the Parliament's Judiciary Committee is carrying out an audit of the nation's prosecutors' offices at the Seoul High Prosecutor's Office as we speak. The biggest issue on the table is the recent dismissal of Prosecutor Yoon Seok-yeol, who led a special probe into the NIS scandal.
Yes, and Yoon took to the stand for Monday's audit, and he will take questions if they are directed at him. And of course, we will bring you more details as we get them. Now, yet another scandal is emerging from the multi-layered web of corruption surrounding the country's nuclear power industry.
Well, it turns out that the cable manufacturers that colluded to supply cables used in nuclear reactors at high prices have been paying extra juicy dividends to their shareholders. Arirang reports.
Less than 2 weeks after the country's 8 cable suppliers were fined for price fixing, a new report shows that they have been engaged in other unethical practices. According to online market researcher Tebal.com, the 8 cable suppliers, including money-losing Daehan Electric Wire, paid a combined 77 billion won, or roughly $72 million in dividend payments over the past 5 years. It also found the firm spent $13 million on so-called entertainment expenses for their clients. Earlier this month, the Fair Trade Commission fined the 8 companies based on how much each had gained unfairly through price fixing. But this is just the latest in a string of corruption scandals shaking the nation's nuclear power industry. Just last week, one of the 8 companies, JS Cable, was found to have supplied cables with fake quality warrants for 2 reactors, the Shingori reactors 3 and 4. This has pushed back the start date for both reactors to 2015, raising concerns about a possible power shortage next year. In a related development, a report on Monday shows that the Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power Corporation, the state-run company in charge of the country's nuclear power plants, has granted a large number of contracts to suppliers run by family members of its employees over the past 10 years. The report, which was compiled by ruling Saenuri Party lawmaker Lee Jae-ik based on the operator's data, showed that the contracts were worth 21 billion won, or roughly $20 million. Yurian, Arirang News.
A team of officials from the International Monetary Fund is currently in Seoul to meet with policymakers for their 2-week-long annual meeting. Korea's finance ministry says the team, headed by the deputy chief of the IMF's Asia-Pacific Bureau, Isabel Mateo Silago, will discuss Korea's economic conditions, financial and fiscal policies with government officials starting this Monday. They will also assess the possible impact from advanced countries' push to roll back stimulus measures as well as falling growth potential. The IMF team will announce their findings at a press conference next Friday. Korea signed a currency swap agreement with Malaysia, taking the number of such deals with emerging markets this month alone to 3. Bank of Korea Governor Kim Jung-soo and his Malaysian counterpart signed on the dotted line Sunday for a currency swap contract worth $4.7 billion for 3 years. The 2 countries will use their currencies in trade in the hope of reducing their dependency on the greenback. Korea also hopes to globalize the Korean won and secure imports of natural gas from Malaysia. The latest agreement comes as Seoul pushes to expand use of the won with major trading partners among emerging economies. Earlier this month, Seoul announced similar deals with Indonesia and the United Arab Emirates, together totaling $15.4 billion.
Despite increasing income, Korean consumers seem to be spending less. A new report says the rapidly aging society and low job security are just some of the reasons for the slump. Our Kim Min-ji has the details.
Weighed down by various social factors, consumer spending is on the wane despite the fact income is going up. According to a report by the Hyundai Economic Research Institute Sunday, real income rose 1.3% in the second quarter of this year from a year earlier, while spending recorded minus 0.4% growth. The sluggish spending was attributed to the rapidly aging society, unstable job market, and increase in housing rental prices. Increased life expectancy has raised concerns and put a burden on households about their life after retirement. A survey conducted by Statistics Korea last year showed only 9% of people think they were well prepared for old age. A separate poll released Sunday showed non-retired households will only be able to save up 40% of the needed expenses for their old age at the current rate of preparation. Moreover, a sluggish job market has also added to the reduced spending. The number of new jobs rose 1.3% in the second quarter of this year from a year earlier, which compares with the 2.1% growth in the third quarter of last year. Soaring housing rental prices have also reined in consumption. Rental prices nationwide have been rising for 60 straight weeks. Experts say policies to stabilize the job market and housing industry are needed in order to spur spending. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
The Korean government hopes to do more for women next year by adding programs to boost gender equality and improve conditions for women at work and at home. According to a budget submitted by the Finance Ministry to Parliament for approval, the government is seeking to spend 22.4 trillion won, or $21 billion on gender equality next year, which is an increase of almost 70% from the $12.5 billion allocated for this year. In particular, the plan includes more than $2.9 billion for childcare programs, an increase of 19% from this year, and nearly $30 million for projects related to the prevention of sexual violence against women, an increase of around 6%.
For your fill of Korean and international news. Join Chae Yu-sun and Mark Broom every weekday at lunchtime. Newsline at noon.
Plenary session this Wednesday and vote on the government restructuring bills.
Australia's bushfire nightmare is now into its 5th day, but authorities there are still struggling to control the blaze, which could soon threaten Sydney. Our Kim Hyun-bin has the latest.
A state of emergency has been declared as bushfires scorched large swathes of the Australian state of New South Wales. Hundreds of people have been left homeless by the blaze, which is expected to intensify in the coming days, as strong winds and soaring temperatures are forecast to fan the flames. Officials say nearly 60 blazes have scorched more than 1,100 square kilometers of land. Around a dozen fires are still out of control.
And we're seeing very warm conditions, so very hot days, very strong winds. We have firefighters coming from all around the state, but the size of the fires that we have at the moment are that big, some of them travelling 30 kilometres in one day. It's very hard for us to contain those fires quickly.
The cause of the fires remain unclear, but officials are looking into a blaze near the city of Lithgow to see if it was caused by a military training exercise. Officials say a total fire ban has been issued for the Greater Sydney region, meaning all fire permits are suspended and no fires can be lit in a public place. Authorities have advised nearby communities to consider evacuating ahead of the worsening weather conditions. Over 1,300 firefighters were tackling the blaze on Sunday evening, and at least one death has been reported. The Blue Mountains, west of Sydney, is one of the worst affected areas, with many fires still raging out of control. Officials have warned 3 of the main fires could combine into one huge bushfire in the next few days and could possibly threaten Sydney. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
In a move that will surely ratchet up already high tensions between Japan and China, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has allowed the country's self-defense forces to shoot down any foreign drones that intrude into Japanese airspace if warnings to leave are ignored. Japan's Defense Ministry re-examined existing countermeasures for surveillance drones after it spotted a Chinese drone last month flying near the disputed Senkaku Islands in the East China Sea. Beijing claims the islands, which it calls Diaoyu, as Chinese territory. The ministry said it drafted the new plan after it determined the drones China is developing are equipped with high-performance cameras and radar, which pose the same risks as manned aircrafts. Analysts say the move is a demonstration of Tokyo's readiness to respond to any acts that violate its sovereignty. A suicide bombing at a popular cafe in Baghdad has left at least 35 people dead and dozens injured. Security and medical officials say a suicide bomber drove a minibus towards the cafe where people were gathered watching a soccer game and smoking water pipes. Although no one has claimed responsibility for the attack, which occurred in a Shiite majority area of the city, groups of minority Sunni Muslim militants unhappy with their social exclusion have been orchestrating such attacks in recent months. More than 7,000 civilians have been killed this year alone in a recent surge of violence in Iraq.
Now, improving your daily driving habits could save you hundreds of dollars in gas each year and hopefully save you the headache of getting into a traffic accident. In order to drive this point home, Korea hosts an annual fuel efficiency competition to see how far drivers nationwide can stretch a single tank. Paulie reports.
48 of Korea's best drivers gathered in Seoul earlier this month to show off their skills. However, this particular race rewards those who take it slow and steady. This so-called King of Fuel Efficiency contest has been held each of the last 4 years, with a new division added this year for trucks. Vehicles are carefully monitored as they drive along this 11-kilometer course around Seoul World Cup Stadium. Each of the standardized cars' gas mileage has been rated at 11.9 kilometers per liter of fuel. But the top 19 drivers were able to easily drive farther than the official metric. This year's top driver was able to stretch his fuel consumption to up to 18.7 kilometers per liter. That quickly adds up to fuel savings of $700 to $3,500 per year. Professional drivers say the key to unlocking this extra distance lies in inertial driving.
Your overall strategy is to adapt your engine strength as you drive. Don't brake suddenly and try to use the car's inertia to help you move. When you do have to come to a stop, do it slowly. You should anticipate when the car in front has to stop and change gears accordingly.
It's important to recognize that these smarter driving techniques not only result in considerable economical savings, but also improve road safety, meaning you'll be doing your part to save lives as well. Paul Yi, Arirang News.
The U.S. Centers for Disease Control says the skyrocketing use of antibiotics in the livestock industry poses a serious health risk for consumers around the world. But Korean scientists say the solution to this massive problem could come from silkworms. Our Kim Ji-yeon explains this recent breakthrough in biotech and how it could make the meat you eat safer.
In recent years, scientific research into silkworms has been a growing field here in Korea as pharmaceutical and cosmetic firms seek to unlock the genetic secrets of this tiny creature. This time, Korean agriculture researchers use silkworms to naturally produce antibiotics for farm chicken. The first step in this process is to utilize the powerful immune system of the silkworm. Researchers inject lactic acid bacteria into the silkworms, which induces an immune response in their bodies. As a result, potent antimicrobial peptides are produced which have shown to be highly effective in fighting a broad spectrum of bacterial, viral, and fungal infections. These antibiotic-filled silkworms are harvested into a powder and then mixed with chicken feed in small doses. After 5 weeks of consuming the natural antibiotics, the level of salmonella and E. coli in the chicken dropped by nearly 10 and 4% respectively. In addition, poultry flocks were observed to have increased body weight despite eating less. Researchers say the health and economic benefits can extend to other livestock as well.
It's not just for farm chickens. It also can be applied to cows and ducks. Poultry farmers, pig breeders, fish farmers, they will be able to greatly benefit from the treatment if it's able to be established and extensively promoted.
Back in 2011, the Korean government placed a total ban on mixing antibiotics with animal feed to ensure consumer safety and also reduce the risk of creating drug-resistant superbugs. However, this silkworm-based alternative could be the answer farmers here and abroad are looking for to ensure that their livestock remain disease-free without dangerous chemicals. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
October is the month of culture here in Korea, and venues around the country are finding their own ways to celebrate. Our Park Ji-won takes us to 2 special exhibitions happening in Seoul this month.
here at Culture Station 284, a multidisciplinary space for arts and culture, housed in the old Seoul train station, a group of undergraduate architecture students are installing an exhibition about their field of study.
Regular citizens might feel that architecture is inaccessible to them, so we're aiming to bridge the gap by showing something about the life of an architecture major.
The project is part of a month-long celebration commemorating the Month of Culture in Korea. The government designated October as the Month of Culture and October 19th as the Day of Culture back in 1972. But this year, with the Park Geun-hye administration having declared cultural enrichment as one of its key national goals, the celebration has grown. This month, there are some 1,200 events taking place around the country.
I think it's great that these events are not only for government officials or artists. We citizens can enjoy a variety of events with our families. My family got a chance to perform at one of the events, and we also got to see other people perform.
Also, as part of the celebration, 5 of the most beloved Korean poems, as chosen in an online poll, are being displayed around Gwanghwamun Square through the end of the month in an exhibition co-organized by the Culture Ministry and the Society of Korean Poets. The organizers hope the poems will provide passerby with a moment of relaxation and a bit of inspiration for the rest of their day. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Well, we sure had some wonderful weather over the weekend. It's still almost summer-like during the day, at least. Let's get a check and see how the weather is looking for the rest of the day and hopefully this week as well. With our Lee Ji-yeon is standing by at the Weather Centre. Good afternoon to you, Ji-yeon.
Good afternoon, Mark and News. Now, as much as I enjoy the beautiful autumn weather, I've also been noticing some changes to my skin as well. How about you, Yusan?
Yes, I have too. Skin feels a bit dry these days.
Yeah.
Well, I know drinking water will help my skin a little bit, but what else can I do?
Well, some beauty experts say that we should use a hydrating facial mask once a week during the fall and winter. They say it will add moisture and nourish the skin, but I use facial masks for 5 consecutive days when I feel any dryness start to set in, and that usually helps soothe my skin, so you should try that out too. Well, weather-wise, we have another beautiful day ahead of us with autumn sun, and highs are hovering in the low 20s in the most regions. Well, thanks to a high-pressure system situated to the north of us, it's bringing lots of sunshine to the nationwide, and it's likely to linger throughout the day. In fact, this nice autumn weather is likely to continue through tomorrow, and sky will be mostly to partly sunny with afternoon highs rising to low 20s just like today. But later in the week, the temperature will plunge once again. Morning lows will drop into the single digits and the afternoon highs will only get up into the middle teens in the central region. So let's enjoy the beautiful weather while it's here. And today should be one of those days. It's looking fabulous outside. So let's take a closer look at the readings for today. The afternoon highs in Seoul will get up to 22 degrees Celsius, which is 72 degrees in Fahrenheit. And Daegu and Busan will make it to 22 as well with a fair amount of sunshine. Now let's see how other regions are looking. It looks like Jeju and Daejeon should enjoy a toasty afternoon with highs rising to 21 and 22 respectively, while Dokdo rises to 16 and Mount Kumgang stays in the single digit all day long. Now that's all for Korea, and here's the global forecast for viewers around the world. That's all for me today. Enjoy your lunch break and hope you have a great rest of the day. Now let's send it back to Mark and Yusan in the studio.
Well, thank you very much, Jian, for sending it back to us there. And that's pretty much all we have for you now. But you can always catch up with what's been happening on our website, which can be found at arirang.co.kr/news.
Mark and I will be back here tomorrow, but do stay with Arirang TV for more on the day's headlines.